Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and please join me in welcoming our television and webcast viewers to this morning's breakfast. My name is Jennifer Sloan. I'm a past president of the Canadian Club of Toronto and your host this morning. And viewers, we are very pleased that you are participating with us today. The Canadian Club is proud to provide a forum for leaders in every aspect of society to share their ideas with us. It is a tradition that we have upheld for 120 seasons. We are committed to providing a welcoming venue for discussion and debate on issues that impact our lives, our city, our province, and our country. Through our programs and activities, we offer access to dynamic political, business, and public figures from across the country and around the world, like today's guest speaker, Ontario's Premier. Before I formally introduce her, let me tell you about some of our upcoming events. We will kickstart the new year with our 40th annual Outlook on Thursday, January 12th. It is the GTA's best political and economic forecast lunch, and we hope you'll join us. On Thursday, January 19th, the day before the U.S. inauguration, we will convene our strategist panel of David Hurley, Kathleen Wynne, and Jamie Watt, moderated by the esteemed Don Newman. And these sage politicos will weigh in on what the new U.S. president will mean for Canada and our relationship with our southern neighbor. To order your tickets or to learn more about the club, please visit our website at canadianclub.org. You can also join the conversation via Twitter or Instagram by following us at CDNCLUBTO or by using that hashtag. I want to acknowledge our series sponsors for their ongoing support and generosity, Bruce Power and the Carpenters District Council of Ontario. Thank you for making these events possible. And a special thanks today and a show of our appreciation to our event sponsor today, TD Bank Group. Thanks, Nori. Additionally, I'd also like to recognize the youth and young leaders who are with us today, sponsored by Simon Dwyer from BCE. Welcome, Jarvis Collegiate Institute. Where are those students I met earlier? Stand. There they are. If I thought it was early this morning, I know what they were thinking. And now, today's speaker. In doing our research for today's event, we noted that American aviation pioneer Amelia Earhart spoke at the Canadian Club on December 13th, 1932. 84 years ago to this very day that Premier Kathleen Wynne is addressing the club. At the time, Ms. Earhart was the only woman in the room. Thankfully, times have changed. Today's special guest, however, still remains the province's first female premier. Ontario's 25th premier is known for her laser focus on achieving results. You can just ask the recipients of her mandate letters. They are clear, detailed, and action-oriented. In fact, over the past several months, members of the Premier's cabinet have joined us to talk about how the province is investing in infrastructure, technology, innovation, education, and job creation. And today we are pleased that the Honourable Kathleen Wynne, our Premier, is here to share her plan to make Ontario even stronger for everyone. And lucky for us, the Premier has also agreed to take questions from the floor at the end of her speech. So I ask you to get your thinking caps on. Premier Wynne, welcome. The Canadian Club of Toronto's podium, Canada's podium of record, is now yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Very courageous.
84 years, the only woman in the room. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you over there. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here. Good morning. Bonjour, bonjour, Annie. Thank you, Jennifer, for that introduction. 84 years ago, and the only woman in the room. Awesome. That is awesome. It's great to be back at the Canadian Club, and as I wrote in the book, thank you for allowing me to be part of your history. It's a real privilege to be here, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate all you brave humans who got up so early to come for breakfast. Thank you very much. As many of you know, I always begin by recognizing that Toronto has been a gathering place for the people of Turtle Island for many generations. Hundreds of years after the first treaties were signed, they're still relevant to our lives today. So I want to show my respect to the contributions, for the contributions of Indigenous people and recognize the role of treaty making in what is now Ontario. Je tiens à exprimer mon respect à l'égard des peuples autochtones et à reconnaître le rôle qu'ils jouent les traités dans ce qu'est devenu l'Ontario. So, thank you all for being here. I know from my own years of juggling work and family life that this can be an exhausting time of year, and it is a dark time of year. So you've come in the dark, you're going to go home in the dark, and I appreciate you being here. We're in the home stretch, however. It's almost the 21st, which means that the 21st, the days start getting lighter. So that's a good thing. And in a few weeks, most of us, I hope most of you, will get a little break to catch up with friends and family and spend some time. This is a season of reflection. It's a time when we look back at the year that was, and certainly in politics, it has been quite a year. I think we can agree. and not even just talking about Canada. Of course, the biggest story actually wasn't in Canada. It was, the biggest story of 2016 was the US election. Not just the outcome, but the whole campaign was pretty unprecedented. It was extraordinary. And I bet, I'm not a betting woman, but if I were, I would bet that it's going to continue to be the big story, because North America is now just entering those uncharted waters, as we can see there on the screen. It's still the early days of an uncertain post-Brexit Europe as well. So this is the context in which we head into 2017. This is the global context. And I'm not going to dwell on the world beyond our borders this morning, but just to say that I just came back from Korea and Japan, and every meeting I was in, these were the questions that people are confronting. They're looking at what does all of this mean to the globe and to their ability to trade. But this morning I want to talk about the way forward that I see for this province, for all of us. And it's in that context, but I want to talk about the unique circumstances that we're confronting. You know, each of us has a story about why we do what we do, why we run businesses, or why we choose a particular profession, how we contribute to our community, and for some of us, why and how we got into politics. I wasn't born into a political life, but my family would spend a lot of time analyzing and arguing over the political happenings of the day. I was raised to believe in the power of government to be a positive force in our lives. That was the underpinning of those discussions. That government existed to correct injustice rather than just to let people fend for themselves, to lift people up and to inspire them rather than to divide them. And then later in life, as a mom with my 3 kids, I was concerned about what was happening in their schools. They were in elementary school, and the government of the day was stripping resources out of the public education system. And I had a strong and sustaining belief in the importance of a publicly funded education system. And the reality is that 95% of children in Ontario are in the publicly funded education system. And so, as Ursula Franklin used to say, it really is the thing that has allowed us, because it is equitable across the province, it is the thing that has allowed us to forge this relatively, and it's not perfect, I get that, but relatively harmonious, diverse society that we live in. But at the time that my kids were little, I was worried about children being left behind because resources were being taken out of the system. I could see it happening, and so I ran to be a school board trustee. And from the moment that I stepped into public life, that value that I was raised to believe in, that government must be a force for good, has been my guiding light. It continues to drive me. I continue to believe in that. In practice, that has often led to making tough choices. Choices that point to what I am finding to be my biggest challenge as Premier, and that is to find ways to invest in what I know we have to do to create opportunity and security for people in the long term, but at the same time, make sure that we're providing the necessary supports for everyone to live healthy and productive lives today. It's that balance that is the challenge every single day. Now, electricity prices, I think, are the prime example of what I've been wrestling with recently. I know this will come as a huge surprise to all of you who live in this province. But, you know, we have to be frank and acknowledge that at the turn of this century, Ontario's electricity system was in a mess. Blackouts and smog days were a serious threat to our economic security and to the lives, the quality of lives of the people in the province. The system was broken, and we had to fix it. And we have fixed it. We didn't have a choice about that. We had to tackle it. Today, electricity is clean. It's reliable because of the work that we've done, because of the investments that we've made. There are no more blackouts or smog days. And closing our coal plants for good still stands as North America's biggest step in the fight against climate change, bar none. Exactly. That's right. And you are right to be proud of that fact. People are right to be proud of the fact that we did that, especially now that others are following our lead. You look across the country, look across the globe, and you can see jurisdictions struggling with how to do that. But the cost of the changes that we have made has put a burden on people in every corner of Ontario. People have told me that they have had to choose between paying their electricity bill and buying food or paying the rent. That is unacceptable to me. That cannot go on. And I have committed to fixing it. As you know, next month, every electricity bill will be reduced by 8%, and that's the provincial portion of the HST. And that does make a difference, and it will make a difference. A new program to provide additional relief to those most adversely affected in rural and northern households, that will make a difference too, and will allow about 20% to come off those bills. But it is still not enough. So I've committed to finding more ways to lower rates and reduce the burden on households, and we're going to do that in the weeks and months ahead. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but we've made that commitment. We're going to work across the system, and we will get there. And that is my commitment to ensure that government is making a positive difference in the long and in the short term. For the past 2.5 years, we've been honoring that commitment. We've been honoring that long-term and short-term commitment with a plan that's building the province up, it's strengthening communities, and it's strengthening the economy that supports them. Before I go into the details of that plan, I want to just talk about inclusive growth. And that's something that I think helps to differentiate Ontario from other parts of the world. And what I mean by inclusive growth is growth that creates real, everyday benefits for workers and their families. Inclusive growth means things like more retirement savings. It means a faster commute, or a little more left over at the end of every month. And that kind of growth, that kind of inclusive growth, doesn't just happen. It doesn't happen naturally. We've seen how economies in other parts of the continent are leaving some people behind. So in Ontario, we need to work together to guide growth down that more inclusive path, because it's always been a defining characteristic of who we are as a province, and it needs to remain so. Many of you have heard me say that there's an imperative in politics often to deal with one part of our economic reality and then deal with another, and to do it in sequence. So we're going to balance the budget, and then we're going to tackle poverty. That's not how it works. That is not how it works, because what happens is it's really hard to get to that second part. And so what I have said from the time I was in government is that we've got to be able to do those things together. We've got to be able to find ways to balance our approach. So that's what our plan is about. And government plays a very important role in guiding that kind of inclusive growth. If you look at our infrastructure plan, it's a key part of our overall economic plan, and anyone traveling through Ontario communities these days is starting to see a transformation. Now, that may look like irritating construction, but our mantra is we love construction, we love infrastructure. It means that the province is being built up. So new and rebuilt roads and bridges, new transit options, new and renovated schools and hospitals, and these are essential to our future. In addition, this unprecedented infrastructure investment is providing thousands of good jobs right now. So there's that balance. Last week, I was at a skilled trades training center to announce a really landmark declaration and program. It sets a goal that 10% of all trade hours building the Eglinton Crosstown LRT will go to people living along the transit line who are facing barriers to employment. So that declaration is about making sure that as we invest those dollars, as we do that building, people in the immediate community who might otherwise not have a job, who might not otherwise have that training opportunity, will get that. It's a community benefits model that we intend to use as we deliver many of our other signature projects that are part of that largest investment in infrastructure in Ontario's history. So to give you a sense of the scale of that infrastructure commitment, over the next decade, Ontario is investing an amount comparable to what the federal government has allocated for the entire country. So that's the scale of what we're doing here. The federal government is our partner, as are municipalities, and we are thrilled to work with them. But make no mistake, we are taking the lead on this. We saw this as our path to that inclusive growth that I was talking about. We're also in the lead on building a nimble, highly skilled workforce, and we're making investments there too, in order to anticipate the ongoing changes in the job market. We're investing in the best school system from full-day kindergarten right through to grade 12. We're making college and university more affordable so that more families can send their kids to get the education that they will need. You know, I knew that there was a gap between young people who were growing up in low-income families and young people growing up in higher income families, but I don't think we realized exactly how big that gap was. And so we need to see every one of our young people in Ontario, to see Ontario as a place that's been set up for them to succeed. But right now, kids from middle-class families are taking on a lot of debt to graduate. And that's a deterrent, and it limits their options. And kids from more modest income families are only a quarter as likely to go to college or university as kids from higher income families. That gap is not sustainable. We have to have everyone at their best. We're just not a big enough jurisdiction not to have everyone at their best. So we're going to change that. Starting next year, we're making tuition free for about 150,000 students. Free tuition for college or university. And we're making it so that about 80% of OSAP, or student assistant recipients, will graduate with less debt than before. So we're spreading that across the lower income, middle income families. By making it more affordable to go to college or university, we're actually building on our biggest competitive advantage in the global economy, and that's the talent and the skills of our people. We're building a more inclusive economy where more and more young people can get and can also create the good jobs of the future. So, an inclusive, competitive economy is one that knocks down every barrier. And we just talked about one barrier. Another barrier in our economy is affordable, available childcare. It's why we're also creating 100,000 more licensed childcare spaces. And that's for families struggling to find care. And that build up, that investment means that those spots are going to change those young families' lives. And these are spots for the 0 to 4-year-olds, because with full-day kindergarten and before and after school care, those kids who are in the education system have, they've already got that care, but it's those little babies before they go to school that we really have not included in a systematic way. It's also going to remove one of the biggest barriers preventing women from fully participating in the economy, and it's why in our gender wage gap report that we got from the experts who were looking at that, childcare was at the top of the list, and so that's why we're moving on that. These are the ingredients of an inclusive, fairer, and a more competitive economy, an economy that serves all Ontarians. And I really believe that. You know, these are not partisan political policies. These are the well-grounded beliefs and values that we have seen play out as good for all of us. So there's huge enlightened self-interest for all of us in making these investments. I meet all sorts of people across the province, and like everyone in this room, they know that the quality of life that we enjoy here isn't only about jobs. In everyone I meet, there's this desire to be proud of where they live, their community, their neighborhood, their province. As Ontario's provincial government, we're entrusted with that stewardship. And that's why we're tackling climate change, to make sure that our kids and grandkids have a healthy planet and a low-carbon, globally relevant economy. We led the way on improving retirement security, and we persuaded the rest of the country to come along with us. And we're transforming healthcare by putting more resources into frontline care that puts patients first. But we've not been reckless in our determination to invest in both today and tomorrow. And in fact, we've been just the opposite. And it's that balance that we've had to find. And this coming spring, the Minister of Finance will table a balanced budget, as promised, without having raised taxes on the middle class or having slashed services for those who need them most. We've chosen a balanced way to invest in the future, and at the same time, we've worked hard to ensure fairness. Our economic strength is proof positive that the plan is working. And here's a quick snapshot. Ontario created the most jobs in Canada this year. We grew faster than most G7 countries. We have the second highest concentration of tech companies on the continent after California. Global businesses like General Motors, Thomson Reuters, and General Electric are making big moves into our province. They're creating thousands of exciting new jobs. Our province is Canada's top place for new business investment. So why are so many companies coming to Ontario? Why are they choosing Ontario? They tell us, literally, that it's because of our highly skilled people, our quality of life, and the opportunities that they see for growth here. And that is incredibly encouraging to me, because our plan is building on every one of those strengths. So I want to celebrate these strengths. They are absolutely what we have been working towards, what we're investing in, and I want to celebrate the successes. And I do. But I want us to keep in mind that the recovery in the province is still uneven. Whether we're talking about regionally or whether we're talking about certain groups of people. Even here in the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area, which is Canada's economic engine, people's experiences of the economy are vastly different. Work is changing dramatically for a lot of families. Jobs are being lost and new ones are created, but the people who were in those jobs are not necessarily able to move seamlessly into the new jobs. So there are gaps. And we need to provide training and retraining opportunities and find ways to support workers and new businesses. And we all need to engage in this together because we cannot sustain an economic recovery that isn't being more broadly shared. It's just not sustainable. At this time of year, and I know the other MPPs in the room, members of my team, we all have the privilege of attending the holiday concerts of the schools in our communities. And for me, listening to those kids, talking to their beaming parents, sharing in the joy of the holidays with people from all over the world, it doesn't just make me feel young and remember when my kids were little, although that is part of it. But the joy in those rooms really is the highlight of my year. And this year, with everything that's happened around the world, these concerts put all of that into perspective. Our province is a wonderful place to raise a family. It's a wonderful place to build a business and to invest in the community that binds us. You know, I have had the experience so many times of knocking on doors, thousands of doors, and every now and then I'll get to one where I spend a long time and, you know, the team is yelling, come back, you've got to move on. But I'm trying to convince this person who's had a bad experience of, I don't know, education or healthcare. And there comes a point in the conversation where I will say, so where would you go? Where else would you go? Where is it better? And then they're, oh, no. Oh, I didn't mean that. No, here's the best place. Okay, just let's put it in perspective because it sounded kind of like you thought there was a better place somewhere. This is the best place. We live in the best place. Absolutely. And it's not perfect. And so now, I think, is the time to recommit ourselves to that shared future that we are building. We're building it together. You know there is strength and opportunity across our economy and in our communities. You know that. You live that. Let's together ensure that no worker, no region, and no family is left behind. So, here's the ask. If you're ending the year with strong financials, I want to know if you can take on some co-op students in 2017, or whether you've thought about hiring someone with a disability. If every business with more than 50 employees hired one disabled worker in this province, the problem of disproportionately high unemployment for this talent pool would go away. It would disappear. One disabled worker. Or you could invest in the services of one of the thousands of brilliant, low-carbon or clean tech startups in Ontario. Could you do that? If you could, that would make a huge difference. So I guess what I'm saying is, let's work together. Let's work together to make sure every region in this province is unlocking its potential. Les choix de politique que nous faisons sont les bons choix pour créer des débouchés à long et à court terme. Nous bâtissons une économie concurrentielle et inclusive au bénéfice de toutes les familles et des régions et toutes les régions de la province. I want to hear your thoughts and ideas. I want to understand better how we can work together. What does inclusive growth mean to you? Is that a concept that you can get behind? Is it something that you have seen, that you can support? What do we need to do to thrive? What do you need to thrive? How can we better work together? And what is it that government is doing that is supporting you or is getting in your way? How can we make sure that no one is left behind? That's the fundamental question. So, Thank you, all of you, again for being here dark and early. I so much appreciate it. I want to continue to work with you in partnership as we have. I commit to you that our government will continue to work to find ways to support your communities. Now let's open it up to questions. Thank you very much. Merci. Miigwech. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Joanne.
Great job. As the Premier said, she'll take a few questions. Do we have?
Now, I told those young people from Jarvis, they're economic students, and if they have a question, I think I would love to hear from them, not to put them on the spot.
Exactly.
No pressure, guys.
No pressure. Oh, I'll start, Premier.
Okay.
You've just come back from Ottawa. Congratulations on being part of this pan-Canadian climate change agreement with 9 other provinces.
It's great.
Maybe you could comment just a little bit how Fed-Prov relations are going these days from an Ontario perspective, and what do you think is the next big issue that's going to hit that federal-provincial premier's radar?
So I'll start with the first part of your question. The difference between the conversation or the non-conversation with the previous government and the conversation with the current government is night and day, because there is a conversation, you know, and it's really a wonderful thing to have an opportunity to sit down with the Prime Minister in a formal gathering as premiers and with First Nations, which is what we did initially with in the climate change discussion, and then to have an informal conversation about healthcare. And you know, I will just say that even though we have those opportunities, it doesn't mean that they're easy. It doesn't mean the conversations are easy, but we are engaged in them, and that's what's important, because there is no way to an agreement, there's no way to a consensus across the country if the conversation never happens. So it's a great working relationship. There are always bumps along the road, but that's the case in anybody in a relationship here where there's never been a bump. Just saying, everybody's going home for the holidays. They're going to be with their families. No bumps in those roads. I say to the Minister of Transportation. So it's great that we have that opportunity. The next big issue is on the front pages of the paper this morning. It's healthcare. There's no doubt about that. You know, we have a situation right now where the plan, as it exists, is to go from a 6% escalator on the Canada Health Transfer to 3%. And I would just remind everyone that that 6% or 3% is only a percentage of 23% of what is spent on healthcare in the country. So when we talk about 6%, it's 6% of a fraction of what is spent in the country. And so what all the premiers are saying is that that's not going to cut it. We need a more engaged discussion on healthcare, and we need a federal partner who's going to step up. I mean, the reality is that the original deal, and I know we're not going to go back to that, was a 50-50 share between provinces and the federal government. We're not going there, but right now we have a 23% share from the federal government. It's not enough, and so that's the conversation that we're having. And Ontario has put a proposal on the table that is backed by evidence. 5.2% we're proposing. It's a starting point for a discussion, but in the conversation, I will tell folks that in the conversation with the Prime Minister, that informal discussion that we had after the climate change conversation, the Prime Minister agreed that the health ministers and the finance ministers need to be able to talk about an evidence-based solution, because the 3% that is on the table is really only related to GDP growth. Well, that is not related to the growth of the need in healthcare. And so we need to look at the evidence from the healthcare system and figure out what those numbers are. So I'm encouraged that we're going to have a good discussion. Again, will it be easy? No, it won't. But I think we all know that investments in home care, investments in mental health, investments in innovation, those all need to happen. At the same time, we're having a discussion about pharmacare across the country. So those are tough issues, because our healthcare system is part of what defines us as Canadians, and so we need to make sure that we protect it.
And do we anticipate that conversation to happen early year, mid-year?
Well, the health and finance ministers are meeting next week. We've all said to the Prime Minister that, you know, we're all in budget discussions right now, so we need to know what we're building into our budgets pretty soon. So will we have an answer next Monday? Probably not, but my hope is that early in the new year we'll know.
Good. I thought I saw a hand over here.
See, a brave student from Jarvis Collegiate.
Hi, everyone from Jarvis. We just, first of all, want to thank you guys for having us here. It was really wonderful to hear you talking. And we heard you say a lot about having an inclusive environment. And the few of us here at Jarvis who represent Jarvis really just want to say how much we appreciate that, because at Jarvis, being downtown, we have a lot of different students, and that's just really encouraging. We look forward to being a part of it and helping the city become more inclusive. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. You know, for me, that inclusiveness works on so many levels. And when I was Minister of Education, I had the privilege of reintroducing the notion of inclusive education and equity back into the Ministry of Education. The previous government had literally, and I'm not making this up, had literally taken the word equity out of all education documents. Ministry officials were no longer allowed. There was no discussion. The anti-racism secretariat was taken out of operation, and the whole discussion of how we have a more equitable society had been banished from the halls of Queen's Park. So I was privileged as the Minister of Education to bring that conversation back. So for me, part of that inclusive economy is making sure that we understand how our differences are our strength. You know, we use those words. We talk about our diversity being our strength, but what does that mean? How does that actually work when we are in a workplace or we're in a community where we have vastly different backgrounds? And how do we understand each other? And how do we leverage that into a society that embraces each other and understands that we're better off. You know, when I go to India and every other person I meet has a family member in Brampton, that's a conversation starter, you know? That really helps. And I was talking with the Chinese media yesterday, and you know, it is our strength and it is a joy, but we have to understand that it's fragile and that not everybody adheres to that understanding, and so we need to steward it. So thank you very much for that comment.
Do we have another question? Oh,
Right there.
Colleen. Okay, so this will be our last question. So Colleen will make her way over.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you very much, Premier, for coming to speak with us. My name is Zachary Rose. I'm the Executive Director of the Ontario Undergraduate Student Alliance, an organization that represents 140,000 university students across Ontario.
We love USA.
Thank you. So I really appreciated your comments going over the really substantial changes that your government has made to financial aid and access and OSAP, and particularly encouraging everyone in the room to take on co-op students. That's fantastic as well, so I would echo that. My question for you is, other than access and the affordability piece, what do you see as sort of the next big challenge in higher education that needs to be addressed in order to build up the skilled workforce of the future?
So I know that my Minister of Advanced Education, because I heard her laugh, Deb is here. You have a very distinctive laugh, my friend. So, you know, what we are really working hard at is figuring out how we help and facilitate the evolution of our higher education system to prepare young people for the new economy and to create the new economy. And by that I don't mean turning universities into training schools. My great uncle would be rolling in his grave because he didn't even believe medicine should be at universities. It should all be higher, you know, abstract thinking. But how do we make sure that our institutions, our colleges and our universities are tied closely enough to our society and our labor market that young people can go into higher education with a reasonable expectation of what they're going to be doing at the other end. And you know, I think that what happens sometimes is that young people in our particular system, young people are not exposed to the options in a way that they could be, which is why I said the thing about co-op. When I go into factories, and I have the great privilege of being able to go into places where things are being made and where advanced manufacturing is the order of the day, I hear the owners and the folks on the plant talking about having difficulty finding the people that they need. And I think that often young people, because we have developed an education system that isn't as tied to the workforce as maybe in other jurisdictions, I think we've done ourselves a bit of a disservice. So I think that's the big challenge. When do we start helping kids to think about what they might be doing or what work is? That doesn't mean you can't have an academic endeavor. It just means that you've got a more realistic view of what the world is, and you actually understand that there are fantastic jobs in advanced manufacturing, in technology. You know, why don't more young women go into engineering? Why don't more young women go into STEM generally? And the most brilliant explanation I heard of that was a few weeks ago. Someone said to me, because the women want to know what the impact of the work is going to be. The guys love you all, but you love the stuff. You love the toys, you love the equipment, but the women don't necessarily want to play with the equipment. They actually want to know what the impact is going to be, and once you can convince them and show them what the impact is going to be, then they're more interested. So I think that we've got that kind of work to do with our post-secondary institutions, and that's exactly the Highly Skilled Workforces report. That's the direction that they have pointed us in, and so I look forward to USA's take on that.
So thank you for the question, and Premier, thank you very much.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
So my name's Carrie Kirkman, and I'm president of Kirkman Consulting and a proud member of the board of directors for Canadian Club. Premier Wynne, on behalf of the Canadian Club of Toronto, I'd like to thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule to share your plans for building Ontario up with us. Your premiership has been marked by a series of key capital, economic, and job creation investments that are putting our province to work. The global marketplace may be uncertain and fragile, but here at home there are positive signs of growth and prosperity. Premier Wynne, we appreciate the fact that you've made growing the economy and creating jobs your top priorities. We also appreciate your bold, pioneering leadership, whether it's brought to bear on important issues like climate change, education, or your government's efforts to create harassment and violence-free workplaces. For all that you and your government have and are doing on our behalf, we thank you. Please accept our best wishes for a safe and happy holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie, and I too would like to express my thanks to Premier Wynne for being with us today. Thank you, Premier. I'd also like to extend another round of thanks to our series sponsors, Bruce Power and the Carpenters District Council of Ontario, and thank you also to TD for being with us this morning and today's event sponsor. Thank you. This concludes our program this morning, which will be broadcast on Rogers TV in the days to come. We are grateful to Rogers TV and 680 News for their continuing promotion of Canadian Club events. We'd also like to thank mediaevents.ca, Canada's online event space, and VVC for live streaming this morning's breakfast with the Premier. To learn more about the club, please visit us at canadianclub.org. Thank you for joining us this morning, and on behalf of the Canadian Club, I'd like to wish you all a safe and happy holiday season, and we hope to see you again early in the new year. Our meeting this morning is adjourned.